We'll start with a small prayer to center ourselves and just be present. We've come from different places, different things. So keep your eyes closed, and if you're sitting on a chair, see if you can keep your feet anchored and be present to your body. We'll do the Patanjali prayer. We'll start with 3 Om and then the Patanjali prayer. Yogena chittasya padena vacham malam sharirasya cha vaidyakena yopakarottam pravaram muninam patanjalim pranjaliranatosmi abahu purushakaram Shankhachakrasiddharinam Sahasrashirasham Shvetam Pranamami Patanjalim Srimate Anantaya Nagarajaya Namo Namaha.
Thank you, Kavita. So, namaskaram and welcome to this webinar. I can see many familiar faces here and also a few of you who might be showing up for the first time. So, this is a webinar that we are organizing from Ritambhara Ashram. So, I'll just share a couple of sentences first to introduce Ritambhara to those of you who are not a part of the programs before this. So Ritambhara Ashram is a community of practitioners who are engaged in exploring the practice of yoga to understand and see how we can respond to the current context of living in a meaningful manner. So as part of this endeavor, we have Raghu and Shashi who have been mentoring this group for a while now, and there are many offerings that Ritambhara Ashram has been doing both online and in person across different Indic knowledge traditions, primarily yoga, Itihasa Purana traditions, Vastu Shilpa Shastra, and also recently in the domain of decolonization. So for today's webinar, the inspiration came from the last webinar that Kavita, Gautam and I anchored a few weeks back, where we had an invitation open to everyone to join us on a dialogue on one of our offerings called Saptasura. It's a framework that has been designed by Raghu and Shashi, has been something that we've been working with for a very long time. And as we started sharing our experience of understanding and practicing these swaras, and as we heard many of the participants from the past programs share and some of the questions that came up in this webinar, we felt that one of the topics that came up recurrently and very relevant for today's time is understanding the idea of alignment, personal alignment in today's context. So we felt that this is a good topic and a timely one to explore for today. And I hope all of you have received some questions Gautam shared earlier today, just to reflect upon what alignment means to you. Perhaps I can also invite Gautam to share that as we begin the session. And what we expect this session is to be more of a sharing and interaction, not a one-sided talk from our end. And Raghu is also amongst us to be part of the conversation and be part of the sharing and reflections. So on that note, I invite Gautam to perhaps share his. I think Gautam, many of them have not seen the questions, so maybe you can also share that as you go along. Yeah.
Thank you, Hari. Hello, everyone. So nice to see you all at this time in the evening of the weekend. Just before, maybe an hour before the session, I sent this mail out with these questions. A gentle invitation for reflection on, what does personal alignment mean? We're all getting together on this particular theme. And the invite was to say, what could it mean to you today? What could personal alignment mean to you in your life today? The second question was, what would you be able to think, feel, or do, or how would you experience personal alignment for yourself? And the third and last question was, what helped you, what would help you feel aligned? So these were the questions that we had sent out. Maybe we could take a moment among us, maybe 30-40 seconds, to just reflect on whatever comes up for you right now. I can share my view of it, but we'll just pause for a few seconds before I start. Okay. I think this can also develop in our thoughts as we go along with the webinar. I'm feeling a bit nervous suddenly. Let's see what comes up. Okay, so I was wondering, what does alignment mean to me in the last week? And sorry. And through this week, I was also asking myself, when do I feel aligned? Now that was one way for me to understand, okay, this is what it could mean to me today. And most of it was in retrospect. I felt in retrospect, I can feel that I held no residues in that particular moment. If I engaged in a conversation with somebody, if I did some presentation, if I talked to my wife, if I talked to my client, at the end of it, I come back and say, oh, I think I thoroughly enjoyed these moments fully. And I was able to give my best, whatever it was in that moment. And there's no residue in a sense, like I'm not carrying like, oh, I didn't say this, oh, why did I not mention this, that. Of course, they might end up coming later on, but I'm not second thoughting myself or judging myself. So that full aliveness was what came to me when I felt personally aligned for me. And I was wondering, what could be some of these elements to personal alignment that enabled me in that moment to be aligned or whatever. So I felt maybe it's just to prepare to be able to listen well, to be able to respond appropriately to the context, like not go all over the place. say or do whatever I am there to do in that moment. So which requires a bit of preparation. And I was also catching myself wanting to repeat this again and again. Last point, maybe before I hand it over to the rest of the people in the fishbowl. I was catching myself wanting to repeat certain moments of this. And I said, okay, what is actually worth repeating? And suddenly this thing popped up in my mind. I think I heard it with Michael Neal, one of the people I follow. He used to say this aliveness is the only thing that's worth repeating. In a sense, how you prepare for a context, how you bring yourself, show up for yourself and bring yourselves into a context. And that came up very alive for me. This aliveness, preparing to be very fully alive so that I can listen, respond, be with the other person as they're talking, and so on. So that is what for me personal alignment is at this point in time. So I'll take a pause. I'll hand it over to whoever wants to take it between me, Kavita, Hari, and Raghu right now. And from there, we'll build it.
Yeah.
Hi, good evening.
Sorry.
Yeah, please continue. This is Amar. Please continue.
Okay. Amar, we just give us 5 minutes. We'll just share our experience and then we'll open it out to the group. That was the agenda. Just give us another 5 minutes and then we'll open it out.
Yeah, sorry, please continue.
Thanks, Gautam. So it resonates a lot with me. For me, I was also sitting with this question, what is personal alignment? For me, it's like, from my action that is outside, the interaction with others, the experiences that I do, my thoughts behind the action, and my feelings, truest feeling inside. If they are aligned in some way, not necessary they have to be my truest feelings is what I transfer directly to the action if I choose not to do an action that way. But I say, I know this is how I feel, but I choose to do this way. So I'm very clear and, in these 3 spaces, that is personal alignment for me. And actually it happens with just obviously practice, asana practice, just chanting Om, one prayer here, and many things. And for me, nature is another thing. I just go sit there and I just get aligned. A few experiences in this context of personal alignment is somewhere, especially for me, when I encounter my relationship, I realize I've always wanted this relationship in harmony between these two and between me and that person. I can share it's my husband. So I realized at one point when I was working with myself, understanding my deeper what's happening within me, I realized we are trying to be this happy, good couple, which is, we've been conditioned to so many, obviously, movies and this, and then we eat together or we sit together, we talk together but there was no, I was pushing myself. I was feeling guilty of not doing that if I was not able to. And then I asked this question, what are we doing this? This action is we are supposed to have this happy relationship, but something is missing. It's not actually inside. It's not, my feeling is not the same. That's when I realized both of us actually try to create this ideal relationship in a way that has been conditioned by the system, by our own thoughts and feelings. Then when I was able to even go ahead and talk to my husband and, make it clear, hey, this is what we are doing. In doing whatever we are doing, we are actually trying to create something that is artificial. I should, whenever there is a should and should not come to my relationship, I just screw it up and it's never happy, joyous for me, nor for the other. So for me also, personal alignment is to be true to myself and to the other, to the context that I'm in. That joy that comes is really nice, very rare. I mean, as if I've attained that, it's not like that, but it's a constant work where I just keep going and seeing what is happening within me. Thanks to this work we are doing, either facilitating or practicing or participating, doesn't matter. It is all about what's happening within me and what is the state of my mind. Is there clarity in what I'm thinking, feeling, and acting? So that is basically personal alignment for me. I wanted to bring that.
Thanks, Kavita. I think hearing both of you, I'm feeling a lot of fullness in a lot of joy, actually. And also, I think it's also the intent with which everybody is listening in. What came up for me when I reflected on this was knowing that the first time I started even considering this thought of what is alignment was when I experienced a lot of misalignment. And I got in touch with a lot of sense of being fatigued, feeling a sense of lack of meaning. And I think contrasting with that experience, I'm able to have a better sense of what is alignment more for me today. And at a very, very bodily level, I think when I feel aligned, there's a surge of prana. It's like a gush of something that is flowing through me. And like what you shared, Kavita, that feeling of this is true for me, and it is in a way dharmic or enlivening for the context and the other, that kind of a sense comes in. And that feels very, very energizing. And for me personally, a lot of time this sense of alignment and misalignment comes in the space of my work life. And I think because that question also first started a long time back in that domain, there was always some kind of a seeking that, oh, what I'm doing is not enough, there's something blocking me, and whatever I get, I feel like it's not sufficient, it's not enough. And I think coming into this kind of a space, being part of Ritambhara or exploring things like Saptasara kind of helped me to engage with that misalignment in a more meaningful manner. So while we are all work in progress, I think there's a more clearer experiencing of the misalignment and alignment now. So when I go misaligned also, I'm able to see, oh my God, this much I'm out of sync. And when I come back, I can see that, now it feels more something clicks kind of a feeling. So I think for me, that sense of personal alignment today is when I can just close my eyes, connect with my breath, and I feel that there's some kind of an anchorage from where that energy is flowing through me. I think then I feel, I think otherwise I know that, okay, there's something else I need to look at right now. I think it's only that kind of a very vague, broad sensing right now, but that is, I think, good enough to start the process and see what's really happening to me, what's really happening through my actions, to the context, to the other things like that. Yeah. So that's what this evoked for me.
Yeah, I just feel like getting aligned to everybody else's questions. So
Sorry, somebody wanted to
that's
share
right.
something.
Amar wanted to share and whatever. So let's look at it. Let's listen to some reflections and what happened to Amar?
He's here.
Yeah, hi. I'm sorry, I lost.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I have seen the questions 1 hour back, and I mean, two things really clicked to me. One, at the operational level or at the existential level, to understand, I mean, the alignment for me would be like what I am or what are my true potential, and how do I live accordingly. That's one part. Which I mean, of course, someone else also has mentioned about carpe diem and living in the present moment to the fullest extent. The other aspect, which I don't know how to express it much more in a how to express it, but it comes from Krishnamurti views in his book called Awakening of Intelligence. The absence of the difference between observer and observer dichotomy. So the alignment, if there is an alignment, the dichotomy will vanish between these two elements, the observer and the observed. Of course, I will not be able to explain much because I'm not a right person to do that. So these are the two elements for me when I thought about alignment. And the futures, how do I know that I'm in alignment, would be the concept, living in the present, the flow, what I call. That means that the time will end. You will not think about tomorrow or today. The time will completely suspend. Like when you observe a wonderful sunrise or when you attend a wonderful concert, that few moments, everything will stop. And that for me is alignment, I hope. Well, that's all. I thought of sharing these 2 points.
Yeah. See, Amar, one of the things that we think is important, no, is to keep all the answers you get, especially when you quote all these heavy people like J. Krishnamurti and all that, to keep it slightly on the side, because it usually comes in the way of our own discovery. What I've found for myself is when I keep these things, like many people put it up on their computers, or I don't know what they do with these statements, right? Now you even get labels that you can put up in your fridge. So early morning when you're getting up, you can go and say some Margaret Mead or something, say live in the present or some whatever. Yeah. Now what happens to me is I discover something of my own, and then I start comparing it with these statements. Right? And then I forget that what I've discovered is also from my mind. The meaning I give to this statement is also from my mind. And I get into a nice little soup between these two. Yeah. And recently I've been working with one so-called spiritual organization and all that. And what I find them doing when they're talking to each other and all that is, if I don't like what you're saying, I don't tell you, look, Gaurav or whoever, that I don't like what you're saying. I'll quote so-and-so and say, you know what, so-and-so said this. So Gaurav is stuck. Gaurav wants to tell me you're talking nonsense, but he cannot. So what he will do is he will pick up some other quote and throw it at me. Yeah. So one of the things I think is important is to, it's all right you to, look at J. Krishnamurti and all these people, but it's also important to keep them thoda aside and value your own, what's happening to you. Okay.
But can we keep it separate?
Pardon?
The self or me is a part of all these experiences or all these exposures. If I separate them, then I am left with nothing. I don't know. I'm just asking.
Maybe that's a good start, no? See, let me share with you something I don't often share. Yeah, I've had lots of meetings with Krishna ji and so on. The first time I met him was the most important. So before I met him, somebody had given me a book, right? The book was called Freedom from the Known. It's a lovely book, right? And I have a pretty good memory also. So it's a bad thing sometimes. So I went to meet him and he said, "Hello, how are you? What's your name?" And here I was, Sashi was also with me, all ready to ask Buddha some phenomenal questions. And he's asking me, what is my name? So I had to come down to the ground and tell him my name is Raghu. Right? Then my mind is racing. So I have this very important question to ask him. And the moment the question has popped up in my mind, the answer has also popped up in my mind because I've read it in that book. Right? So I remember the lines from the book. So Krishnaji looks at me and starts smiling and says, "Where do you work?" So I have to come down from wherever I was and tell this person I'm working in so-and-so place. Right? Then he starts laughing a little bit. Sashi starts laughing a little bit. And I'm sitting there and my mind is again asked the next question and got the next answer also. Then he looks at me and says, "Are you happy where you're working?" Okay. So the conversation went on like this for about 4 or 5 minutes, at the end of which, he was laughing like hell and Sashi was laughing, and I was the only guy with a morose face because, I thought I had blown this great meeting and all that. But anyway, after that, he said, "Yeah, you can come and see me and this, that, and the other." So maybe I did something right. I'm not so sure. But why this meeting was so important for me was it just blew out of my head this idea that J. Krishnamurti was going to do something for me. And it was very, very clear that if he speaks, I'm going to interpret it based on my mind. Right? And I'm never, ever going to know what J. Krishnamurti said. Yeah, there's something about his personhood that was, exciting, inspiring, and things like that. But if I have to talk with Krishnaji, I have to ask him, "Where do you work?" I happen to know that he doesn't work, so I couldn't ask him that. I knew where he lived because I went and met him in the place where he was staying for that time and all of that. So he could happily ask me these questions. And every time he asked me the question, I had to give a simple reply to a simple question. I really think that was the most important meeting I had in my life. Right? There are several other meetings I've had with him, but I think this was the most important.
Raghuji, if you don't mind me asking,
Yeah.
what
Please.
changed? What changed for you after that meeting?
After that meeting, I had a big, here you meet Buddha and he's just an ordinary guy asking you questions about your work. Right? So I've met him later and I've found in him some extraordinary levels of listening and so on, which have made a big difference. But I really think that unless I access the Krishnaji in my mind, there is no Krishnaji out there. So one of the things that will be interesting for us to explore when we are here together for the next hour or so is maybe what are your fundamental burning questions? And one of the things that we are concerned with in Ritambhara is that Today it's becoming very difficult to find groups of people with whom you can have quiet, slow, serious conversations. And self-reflective conversations and so on. You're either having to understand what's happening in Ukraine or something like that. And, the funny thing was there was a scenario building exercise that happened just before the millennium, before 2000. And they spoke about 3 broad scenarios that would, unfold. One had to do with climate crisis, which would be converted into war. Because governments wouldn't know what to actually do with the climate crisis. It can only be dealt with when there's deep cooperation. Since they don't know what to do with it, there will be war. And if you look at any war going on today, its roots are resource. Even the Ukraine wars got to do with oil and basically, how do I extract more resources from the earth and grab it for myself? The second scenario was around AI and all that. So Sudeep might know more than me about all this, how AI is suddenly going to come and solve all the human problems. And what they're using it now is they're using AI to make sure drones go and hit the right place. The third was that a lot of people would get a little, they would get upset about the scene and really turn to spiritual movement, not religious. Okay, this was also predicted that the number of people who call themselves spiritual and not religious will grow, and so on. Right? So we believe that maybe some dialogues, some honest sharing is a good place to start. And we also believe that, we don't know. We have some answers. We goof around a little bit. So we'll share with you our goofing around. We'll share with you where we think we made it not too bad. And see how we can keep the question alive.
I wanted to share something, and the question popped up before I could do that. What a wonderful accent wall you have behind you. Fantastic. And the lighting and everything is super.
My wife is an architect,
Fantastic. It's so warm and
so I can't help it.
Pleasing. Fantastic. And you've set up pretty tough ground rules here. We can't intellectualize. We can't process what we might have read or acquired from outside.
So no, you can. So long as you keep it fresh,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No, because that's something I've done. I think for my, personally for me, I think the biggest barrier I've come to know recently that has stopped me or prevented me from knowing more or deeper about myself is kind of intellectualizing everything. And I've been doing that, and I didn't realize that that's been the culprit until very recently. I try to kind of dumb it down in my own mind and try not to kind of use fancy verbiage and concepts that I keep reading. And I have not stopped reading, by the way. And in fact, I've increased and started reading more. But I try not to kind of intellectualize my experiences as I learn or as I do, because it just dumbs it down too much. The way I feel about it, right? it's like touching the tip of the iceberg versus kind of experiencing the whole of it. So I think, we started talking about personal alignment and what it means to everybody. I know we kind of slightly moved on from that, but if I may kind of share what I felt about that. And it's not climate change or war yet for me, kind of a little bit slow. I'll catch up with you before, before it's too late. I think the way I felt about it is, and I've come to this realization recently, when we say recently, probably in the last 12 months or so, that it has taken a lot of turbulent, hilly and bumpy roads for me to get to that point. But I can think of it like, and I can't put it in plain straight words, right? Because I feel it's a barrier. Language is also a barrier. I try to explain it in a form of a metaphor because that's what is coming up for me. I think of it like a home, right? I have multiple rooms. I have a room for mental chatter. I have a room for emotions and feelings. I have a room for learning. I have a nice living room where I can do all the self-talk. I have room for my goals. I have room for my actions and everything. I feel, whenever I feel at home, like it's my home and I have access to these rooms, I can open anything, anytime I want, is when I feel more aligned. I can also invite guests over. I can, send somebody out if I don't want them. So I think that's when I feel aligned and I feel, peaceful, right? I think peace is what my, I forgot what they called it in that movie, Inception, totem, right? I think that's, when I feel peaceful, when I feel less anxious or not anxious, is when I know somewhat I probably am aligned and I'm not, I think, it doesn't mean I don't have chatter. It doesn't mean I don't have feelings. All of it is there. But when I know that I can trust myself when I want to open that door or close it, I think to me, I feel more aligned. I think I just wanted to place it out here for everybody. And recently I've been experiencing it more and more. So I can feel that this is what it means for me, right? To be aligned. I just wanted to place it and pause it here for others to share.
That's so beautiful. I feel like sometimes I have not even looked at one room. There is some rooms it's hidden, If I know that these are rooms there and this is my feel at home in every place, but I might not be in touch with every room, but what a beautiful metaphor. I'm going to take it for my practice. Thank you.
I resonate with what you said, Prasanna, about words falling short, because I was reflecting on the 3 questions Gautam shared. And I think what came up for me is very close to what Hari you shared, which is about the surge of energy that you said. I feel like for me, personal alignment is a sense. It's a very visceral sense. When I am in personal alignment, I feel like, something is unblocked and unlocked and flowing. It's like a freeway. There's no traffic, because otherwise I'm often caught and pulled in different directions. I want this and that and that. And I've, like, in life, last 10, 15 years, especially, I've been tormented by confusion a lot, been pulled in different directions. And it's usually been between 2 directions. So it's been this duvidha. And for me, what feels like would help me feel aligned is to integrate that into, like, my journey has been of moving from the this or this to and, how do I come to and is what is happening. Slowly. I'm not yet there, obviously, but it's going to take a lifetime and who knows, many lifetimes. But it's that sense of coming together as a whole, of feeling one inside, feeling that oneness. And that just brings one lightness to my being. It just brings a feeling of being a channel. I really feel like I want to be a channel for the universe to do its will. And when I'm in alignment is when I feel like I am not doing it. It's happening through me. And I've got that sense in life many times, sometimes while writing poetry or sometimes facilitating, it's happening, So that's, for me, it's like a symptom that, oh, there is personal alignment. I don't know what has happened. Some things have clicked in place inside And it reflects in my choices. So when I'm like you shared, Hari, when I'm not in alignment is when I sense something is off, whether it's a choice of where to spend my time and energy, who to be around, whom to allow into my space and how much. If that doesn't align, I can feel it in my body. I can feel it in my sense. I think so. One good thing that has happened personally for me, as I reflect right now in the session is, I think Kavita, you mentioned the word clarity, or so just having clarity. I think things, so in my choices also a lot has moved from the invisible to the visible. So earlier there were a lot more invisible factors driving my choices, which I didn't fully understand. Increasingly more and more has come into light, saying, oh, this is really the underlying need operating. I'm able to, thanks to contemplation, I think last 1 year, especially after having done IWTI, practicing it still, I'm able to watch, I'm able to see a lot more of the internal processes of what all is playing on my system. You know, what is, it's like the iceberg, what I see versus what is really happening inside. And I've been able to be true to my real need in the moment more and more than before, which I feel is bringing me in a more aligned space, because I'm able to honor that and accept all the not so nice sounding needs also, you know, which are not honorable or not in line with my conditioning, or, you know, as Freud says, all things that get sort of pushed down, I'm able to let it emerge and accept. So that feels like a journey towards alignment. So thanks for the reflective questions, Gautam. They prompted this, sort of spurred this, this kind of a flow. Yeah. Thank you.
I have to confess, first thing I did was go to Google and search for personal alignment. So it didn't help.
And what did Google say?
Well, it said a lot of fancy things. Just nothing that I could resonate with. I mean, they were all, you know, talked about beliefs, values, core values, actions, you know, connections. I just then tried to reflect it. I just couldn't find direct words to say it. So I just thought I'll share whatever just came up. But yeah, Google seldom helps.
Luckily, AI hasn't caught up with personal alignment yet, I think.
Luckily, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this question. Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Sanjay. Go ahead.
This question came in a different form when I was much young. And it came in the form of, you know, more as peace. Those days, personal alignment word was not very popular 30 years back, 35 years back. But I knew that there was some search. And I like Hari's word when he says the click. And I said the cluck, you know, so that was missing. And what is it? I had no idea. And I was in the armed forces, and I used to roam around in the Himalayas. I used to work as a commando OP for India on China, so that the Himalayas, and then I used to go and, you know, be on the peaks of many of these mountains, thinking that I'll find it there. So I probably will find it in another peak. I didn't find it. Probably this was not high enough. And I used to climb those mountains with my small troops. And they used to wander at times, but we had the liberty to do so because we were patrolling the borders. So we used to climb there and stay for a few days and all that stuff. So you'll be always on top of the clouds. And I had a belief, if you go top of the cloud, you will get it. So I stayed on top of the clouds for many days. I didn't get it. So, you know, and I wrote some articles from there, which my commanding officer said, I have to send you to a mental hospital very soon, because these are all nonsense and bullshits you are writing, that I'm the clouds, I'm the mountains. I see myself there. So you better come down from those peaks, be here at the base. I'll send somebody there at the peak, because I need fires there when something is wrong or something. I don't need you are the mountain, you are the peaks. You're the cloud. So everybody discarded all my theories, and then I came back. Anyway, so I left the armed forces. Then I roamed around a lot. Otherwise, then again, to find. Later on, I understood that probably it's very close to personal alignment. And in short, if I conclude, the thing that came up to me was I got that cluck. And I like, Kavita, when you said thinking, feeling, and acting. I got a cluck when I felt that initially I thought I would be having the cluck if I'm at the top of the universe. That means, there's a song in Hindi, Aaj main upar, zamana niche. Kuch nahi hua. All that. So then I found out it was, I am the universe. Very short moment whenever I had the realization that I am the universe. I'm not on the top of the universe. I'm not anything. I'm not even observing the observer and the observed concepts of, the Indian ancient wisdom. No, I am the universe. That is a very short moment of time I felt I'm in full alignment. But it's so short-lived. And now my whole endeavor is to say that how can I expand that ananda, that happiness? How do I see myself everywhere and everything in myself? The only problem is when I do that, I run short of cash because then I don't earn any money. And then again, I come back to earn. And again, I get out of that whole frame what I had worked and again to go back. That's my struggle more. Yeah.
Interesting. Raghu, you want to add something? I see your mic on unmute. Okay.
No,
Interesting.
I'm just enjoying the conversation. I don't have anything to add.
This morning, maybe this question was alive. It came to me. I'll say it first in Tamil, the way it came, and then I'll bring it to English. I'll try to do justice to it. It said, ஆனந்தம் வந்துட்டு போறது அதை கடத்தி எடுத்துன்னு வந்து across the விஞ்ஞானமய கோஷா or பிராணமய கோஷா or அன்னமய கோஷா into the world, அதை கடத்தி எடுத்துன்னு வரதுல there is a joy and beauty. Maybe that is alignment அப்படின்னு வந்தது. So it felt like there is this anandam that keeps coming in and going, and man, what is this? It just keeps coming in and going. How do I just transmission, like in fluid mechanics they use it, the word. Can I transmit that anandam across my other layers of existence into the way I completely live and engage with the world and so on? So I'm getting in touch with it, Sanjay, when you're also saying, this, I'm running out of cash. And how do I bring it to that level of, how do
I was almost getting it. I was taking it after almost getting it and asked my wife, I don't have any money. Do you have? She said, I have no money. You come and work. Within a few days, I was back into my whatever I do for my livelihood.
I'm happy to go next. Full disclosure, I was actually wanting to comment on the Google question because I work for Google and I rarely go and search Google for such a deep question like this. But as I was thinking about alignment, I think for me, it is really to quieten a very busy mind. Because with all the technology advances and exposure we have, I just feel like we're running really, really fast. And how do you calm your mind and quieten your mind? If I just look at life, there are good days and bad days for all of us. How do we live a little more consistently every day? So people say, listen to your heart, listen to your mind. And I don't know when my heart is talking. I don't know when my mind is talking. And can I really understand that better? I think it is a little more self-discovery and being able to be comfortable with everything that I do and just be comfortable in self. I think that's for me more self-alignment.
I may.
Yes, Jogendra.
Yes. So for me, alignment is when I'm at ease with myself and when I'm at ease with my surroundings. I mean, it's not always easy, but as you said, being anchored in the breath, and then you become little aware something is going wrong inside or outside, and you try to calm down and then deal with the situation. So this is how I feel. Thank you.
Can I go next? So why really resonated with Gautam, you started with saying residue. That term actually really resonated because I feel so. And similarly, what came to my mind before reflecting on what is, whenever I felt alignment, the misalignment actually came very easily. When something didn't go as per my wishes, or as Kavita, you were saying, you know, I have a template in mind beforehand. This is how it should go. And when it veers a little bit, even if it may be a small thing like a presentation at work, and suddenly, you know, I'm thrown off tracks and I'm feeling all misalignment, you know, in my body. And yeah, I can feel it in my body, whether it is a little heartburn, or you know, less chaos in mind, a lot of chatter in mind. And the other form of misalignment I have also felt is not from the moment it is actually being carried many years from the past. So at one moment, as it is, I realized that a lot of bitterness was coming from one past rejection, and that consciously, unconsciously was interfering, and I was feeling it as misalignment. And that moment, just recognizing it, kind of lessened its effect, or I almost removed its effect actually. So what I feel is a lot of times just acceptance of something, what is happening or has happened, has led to feeling alignment. And that acceptance, and that's why you know, so it may be a very I may be in a very difficult situation, something is not going you know, as per ideally it should happen, in a conflict, maybe I'm actually in you know, in argument with someone, but still, if when there is acceptance, it doesn't stay long. So again, to use your term, Gautam, that residue is, I'm not carrying over those residues. I think that has been a form of alignment, if I could say for me. Thank you.
Someone, I think, just a couple of sharings back mentioned the breath. So it just occurred to me how often I lose the awareness of how I'm breathing, like how so much and everything seems to come down to that. And it's so simple, but it's hardly easy. So it just feels like to me right now that if I'm aligned with my breath, I think that alignment is there. In moments where I'm one with my breathing, I'm there fully, but I keep losing it. It's to keep coming back to it. So that's what came up for me right now.
See, Akanksha, one of the things with the breath, with respect to the breath and all that is, there is a one-way relationship. So when you quieten down and when everything quietens down, you become aware of your breath, you become aware of your body and so on. Right? So it's a consequence, or you can recognize it. It's some kind of an evidence that you're settled in. Right? But I don't think you can do it the other way about. Right? So you might take some time off and see whether you can disengage from what is creating a problem and therefore allow the settling in to happen. Right? You get what I'm saying, na? So I don't know if I can, right now, if I'm feeling hassled with you, can I breathe myself into alignment? I don't know. I don't think so. But like what Gaurav said or whatever, if I can look at where my dissonance is coming from, right? Then in my experience, it's sort of, that's what helps to settle it down. And then I experience my body settling down, I experience my breath settling down and things like that.
But I've experimented with and experienced the other way around also many times. I found sometimes my mind is buzzing too much and too full of things that I'm not able to pinpoint where the dissonance exactly is coming from. I've tried just sitting and just watching my breathing, firstly recognizing that it's out of, it's going too shallow or too short, and just staying with it for long enough. And I found somehow that the water is just clear. I'm able to see more clearly what is really happening when it's almost like a horse is running, my breath is running, and I run with it for a bit, and then I'm able to climb that horse and then, slowly bring it to a pace that I can take in the scenery and say, okay, this is what was going on. And things just become clearer. I've found that also to happen. But for me, it's just tuning in. Basically, what I'm trying to say is to tune into the breathing. Maybe not. My point was not so much about using it, even though I experimented with that also, to use that as a starting point.
What I'm suggesting, Akanksha, is Gaurav got off the horse and took a look and said, what am I running from? On this horse, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the horse itself slows down after that, no?
Yeah. 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 Sometimes it's the speeding is, my mind is so fast that I'm not even able to tell what is it that I'm running from. So for me, the anchorage comes from just tuning into my breath, and I'm able to tell like where. I get your point though. Yeah. Yeah.
I guess that's why it's a unique practice for our own self, no? Where you are, what you are, and not one standard rule.
So I had a question on that. How do you know you're running away from something? Like, does that need a lot of deep introspection? Because we all get into these situations like this, but how do we know the decision we are making is an aligned decision, or are we running away from something?
Good question.
Yeah, if I may share what comes up for me.
Very
Sorry.
good question. Yeah. So let's
No, I will
pursue
just very quickly, 10 seconds. It just came up to me that if you don't know where you're headed, you're probably running away from something. That's what came up for me.
You'll have to share some more, Prasanna. You just made, what you said reminded me of what this guy from the Doors said, no? Not all who wander are lost.
Yeah, Tolkien. I have to show you something.
So tell me.
A moment.
So tell us a little more about your.
This is what I have.
See, super.
Yeah, I am a big fan. I think that's something I've reflected a lot on. Not all those who wander are lost. Very, very poetic words.
Tell us more about your wandering. Sanjoy also gave us some little nice taste of the hills and whatever. And then suddenly he said, there's just one word, be with the universe, and he's gone. I'm still waiting for more, yeah?
Yeah, no, I think in my own mind, I was talking about the metaphor of home, right? I think I'm trying to own my home as of now, wandering inside the home only. Haven't gone berserk about exploring outside, but this is itself is quite plenty, right? Maybe I'll find, like Kavita mentioned, maybe I'll find a lot of hidden rooms and places that I haven't explored. the way you're exploring this is fascinating, because when you shared a deeply personal experience with JK, and then immediately you moved on to Ukraine war and the world resources, I was wondering how you're able to kind of your horizons and your viewpoints is changing from you mentioned ground all the way to I don't know what height, maybe 60,000 feet level, but I'm not there yet. I think I'm still kind of inside my home, trying to own my home and be able to access and explore. I think that's where I am. I think that's what I wanted to share.
I was still talking about myself and my concerns, Prasanna. Yeah, when I went to see Krishna ji also, I went with the same concerns. I'm still hanging around with the same concerns.
Yeah.
I really didn't go very far away. I was just sharing with you my current state of mind.
That's what's fascinating to me, right? To you, it's not too far away.
Hoping more people will ask some of these questions and we'll move more and more towards some collective exploration for a while about what are our deepest concerns and what we can do. If nothing, at least share it and have somebody listen to it.
Hi, Raghu. I have a question. Actually, I'm not sure. This is Vignesh, and I am not sure about what personal alignment means to me right now. But I had a question regarding dharma. So I was reading Bhagavad Gita, and where Krishna, gives updesh to Arjuna to know your dharma. And when you know your dharma, you can take your actions correctly. The karma will follow. So right now I'm trying to understand, and he also talks about how dharma is different from different people and also changes with situation. So I was trying to understand what is dharma and how it changes with situation and how can you figure out it in each situation.
Vignesh, I'm always very scared of these kind of questions. So I'm gonna push you a little bit. Right. Krishna started answering Arjuna. Arjuna was hanging around with Krishna for years. Remember, these fellows were almost 80 when the war started. If you count their various things, most of them were about around 75, 80. Right? So for some 40, 50 years, Krishna has been hanging around with Arjuna. And Arjuna never asked him the right question, yeah. So this whole thing about dharma, karma and all that happened because Arjuna went down and he said, look, I really am concerned about where to put in my energies. I'm very deeply concerned that I'll put in my energies into the wrong place. Right? It was only because he asked that question from a very deep place that he heard Krishna answer him.
Okay.
So what is your real question? Is it a passing, thing of what is dharma? Or is it a fundamental question that matters to you? Where are you putting your energy? Are you putting your energy on the side of adharma or on the side of dharma? We know it. We don't need all this intellectual discussion to know whether we are doing something that is deeply dharmic and meaningful or not. So a casual question about what is dharma, what does Bhagavad Gita says, will never get an answer for you, Vignesh.
So I was coming from a sense like as we go on with life, there are situations where you don't know what to do. And I was trying to understand it with the Indic knowledge of, how do you know in what situation is what is right? So it is coming from a deep space to actually understand what action you should take, and the duvida that life's put you through any situation. So I wanted to understand how to tackle life situations and choose what is right at almost every situation, or try to be as close to being right.
Tell me what happens to you when you read the Bhagavad Gita. Are you reading it to learn about yourself? Are you reading it to get some quick tips, some action pointers? Why are you reading it?
So I actually started watching. So I started reading it because of I watched this series of conversation in one of the Mahabharata shows, TV serial, and I found it very interesting, the conversation itself. And that is the first time actually it was like there's a different context to life than the usual interaction that you have with the, be it your parents, friends, the general conversations. So that was my first interaction with such different way of, you can also think life in a different way. Meaning, when Arjuna, so one example to give you for different, what I mean by that is when Arjuna says, this is my, grandfather, or they are my relatives, how can I kill them? And he says that there is just soul cannot be destroyed, and in the next incarnation you might not even know them. And so these kind of knowledge.
Wait, Vignesh.
Yeah.
Wait. Yeah. Just stay with that question that you asked till now, because you've jumped to the answer too quickly.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm very serious about it. Nah. See, one of the things that has happened is in most of the Indian texts, when you go into Bhagavad Gita, when you go into some Upadesha kind of a thing, right? Most of us forget that whoever asked the question has been sitting on that question for a long time.
Okay.
Right? So just stay with the question. And let's, you don't have to do it now, but can you look at what is your internal dialogue? What is your internal voices that are pulling you and pushing you when you're faced with a difficult decision? Because these kind of answers are all, escapes, Vignesh. Because I don't experience my soul. Soul anyway doesn't exist in Sanskrit. I don't know why they're calling it soul. Atma is not soul. And they contradict, no? The texts say that this yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha, when they're talking about Atma. So they're clearly telling you that this mind and this thought can never know Atma. So the moment you give that answer to yourself, you cannot inquire clearly. Yeah. So can you find the strength to look at what is the dilemma?
Right.
And the answer is not in this theory. Rebirth, this, that, all that is fine. Yeah. You were saying?
No, actually, I wanted to. I pulled that example to tell you the different knowledge that that Bhagavad Gita has, and you asked me why I started reading Bhagavad Gita.
Correct.
So yeah, so that was one of the examples I was trying to give when I said
Yeah. So I'm telling
that.
you how to read the Bhagavad Gita, Vignesh. I'm saying read the first chapter. Go to that point when Arjuna is asking fundamental questions of life. And when we sit and ask fundamental questions of life, I can assure you we will experience all the psychosomatic symptoms that are described there. If it's a really difficult life question, you will experience all of those. Your heart, that's what Akanksha was saying, right? Your heart rate will go up, your galvanic skin response will become low, you'll be sweating heavily, whatever, all of these symptoms will happen. Right? So when you read that part of the Bhagavad Gita, go back and really ask yourself, what are your difficult life questions?
Okay.
Right? And then if you read further, things might start making sense. Right?
Right.
Yeah, and don't forget, at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, this fellow goes and fights the war. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're asking that question so that you can engage with life with power. You're not asking these questions to escape from life.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
Right. So first you have to die to then go next birth and see Atma is there or not. So that's the way to read these things.
No, I think
become Arjuna. Become Arjuna, ask that question, Krishna will come and speak to you. So if you want help, we can all be there. We'll also ask you some of these funda questions that we don't have an answer for.
No, actually, I just wanted to, check with that to become Arjuna.
No, I'm serious. Vignesh, I'm very serious, Vignesh. That's what we do. We help people to get to that space where you can ask these serious questions, because if you ask it just by yourself, it is not very easy. But if you articulate and ask these questions in the context of friends, we can listen to you. We can be there with you in your agony or in your difficulty. And, we can share what we did with our difficulties. Maybe some of our answers will make sense. Some of them may not make sense to you. But you at least know that you're with us. You're not lonely. You're not just, facing these life questions out there on a limb. There are many, many, many people asking these questions, except that we haven't found a way of asking it together with other people. And that's a very critical thing to do, because that's why all these sanghas were created, no? That's why there's a Buddhist sangha.
You rightly mentioned. Actually, I think the question my explanation went in a different direction. But as you rightly mentioned, become Arjuna. So that is the reason I was trying to understand what is dharma. That was the original question. And because as Krishna says, if you know your dharma in a situation, you will know what karma to do, and your actions will be much clearer. So that was the
That's true. But having read this sentence, have you found your dharma?
No, not actually.
Yeah, so you have to ask this question and then listen very deeply, and Krishna will speak to you.
Yes, hopefully.
And maybe even the Bhagavad Gita will make sense. I don't know. But unless you listen to the Krishna inside you, the rest of the Bhagavad Gita won't make sense to you, Vignesh.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Raghuji. I think, this has been, I'm getting goosebumps. The huge insight that I got was, how long have you been sitting with this question? I think I can tell you what didn't work for me, Vignesh, what definitely didn't work for me. And I've had pretty dark times in my life. And I've beaten the heck out of, reading books, reading Bhagavad Gita to some extent, reading Viktor Frankl, reading Carl Rogers, reading, I don't know, Daniel Goleman, a bunch of books. I know what didn't work for me. Any amount of intellectual gymnastics, it just didn't work when the rubber hits the road, when I'm actually facing the situation. When it comes to a question of, should I do it? Shouldn't I do it? Is it right? Is it wrong? These just didn't work because those were just that, right? Intellectual gymnastics. It's just, it's good. Every time I read it, every time I felt I understood it, it made me feel good. Because it just felt like I got answers, right? Those are, I think intellect is the biggest enemy to get past it, right? I think that's something that I've come to realize. But I don't have an answer, obviously. But what Raghuji mentioned today, that sit with the question, how long have you been sitting with the question, is deeply insightful for me. It doesn't matter what that question is, and you mentioned about Sangha also. I'm sure those Sanghas are filled with people who have been sitting with questions for years and years, if not lifetimes. I think, we need to get really serious about sitting with those questions and being comfortable sitting with those questions, not getting anxious or fluttery about it, right? I think that's what my next pursuit probably will be. That's where I'll be wandering.
It's a good thing, Prasanna, to wander, and it's a good thing to have an intellect. Intellect is not necessarily an enemy. You only have to not take
I think it's just a barrier, I feel. Yeah.
No, you don't take it too seriously. It's a nice thing, yeah. Reading Carl Rogers is very nice. Right? He also wandered. He went to China for a long time. He went to Japan.
I'm sitting with something, and I just wanted to kind of put it out before we close the call. Like I have this lack of alignment when the ego comes for me. Like I really become very, very possessive with the ego, and I don't want to let go of the ego. I understand, okay, when I'm in a better space, when I'm in a good aligned mental space or something, then I'm absolutely fine. Everything is okay. Everything is forgivable. The world is beautiful. But as soon as I'm caught by that ego thing, then I get really disaligned, and I don't think this lifetime I can live without the ego. I mean, it's like, how do I? It's like this Atman Samman, and I feel that I'm not respecting myself if I'm constantly eroding myself with that, thing. I just don't know. And this is the disalignment when I'm with the ego. But again, I feel it is important to live this life. So yeah.
Rashmi, good thing, a good point to start. Maybe not call it ego and then give it a bad name. Yeah, so then you can start looking at it, no?
Right.
And the moment you give it a bad name, you're sounding like Vetal, no? Vikram and Vetal. Every time the Vetal comes, you get into a big muddle about it. Yeah.
Got it. Thanks.
Just a time check also. I know, Rakhu, you have another call to also get into.
Yeah.
So
at 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, just we'll also kind of close the conversation in another few minutes. So I'll just share something I am in touch with right now. I think Sunita's, I think you're sharing also about, yes,
I'll just call off at 8:55 or so, another 5 minutes.
Sure,
Yeah?
Riku. Sure, sure. Yeah.
So you just carry on, right?
Yeah, we will continue. Yeah, thank you. No, I think some of the sharings around really pausing to ask ourselves, what is this race that you're running, or the idea of collectively inquiring on some of these questions. Otherwise, it can easily feel very lonely when I hold this question. Oh, this is my, and for me at least personally, I also felt that sometimes it gives a very fantasy kind of a feeling of being a hero, but in a very wrong way, saying that this is only my special hurt in life and nobody else has it, and that can take me in a direction which can kind of doesn't really serve myself or the others. So in some of the sharings that came up, I think around dharma and these things, what I got in touch with was how did some of the practices, when applied over a time, help to engage with it meaningfully. Otherwise, sometimes when we do a workshop or a short program, it often gets into a space where I feel that I figured it out and then it's just back to the same routine. So at least for some of us here, I think what really helped is understanding this as a practice, ongoing practice. And that idea of a committed long-term practice is what came alive for me during these discussions, because there was a lot of how do we then inquire this? How do we take it for a time? And I could really even resonate with what Sanjay, you shared about, okay, at the end of the day, I also need cash. So all this brought in the questions that I engaged with in the past and in the present of, okay, how do I then craft a life or create a life for myself where it is not ending in just that I am able to enjoy even the material aspect, but also find my own meaning or create my own meaning of what is that is energizing me, which could be very different from the person next to me. And I think to that extent, even Saptasara kind of really helped in terms of asking these questions in the domain of my relationships, or for me, a great deal in the realm of my workspace. Where is this action coming from really? And a lot of times when I realized what I started with, the idea that I am so misaligned, only when I could ask that question of, in doing what I'm doing, what am I really doing? And I don't think it's just me asking. A lot of times that question came from the Sangha or from the groups that I were part of. And so even realizing that, am I really asking the right question? I think the beauty and the power of inquiring collectively, like we did today evening, is something that's really critical, I feel, to help us even stay with these questions so that we receive the gift of its power to change ourselves. So just in touch with that.
Thank you, Hari.
I also would like to just add, because I mean, some of you, I know, joined a little later in the call. The entire idea of this conversation also came up in the last webinar about Saptasara. So while many of you may already know about the program and everything, the current context of this conversation was also inspired by that questions which came up in that. So if any of you feel called to explore this questions in a more deeper way, more experiential way, we have a 7-day retreat coming up at Ritambhara Ashram in Kotagiri. It's from December 11 to 18. So I know it's like a little bit of short notice also for some of you who might be knowing it for the first time. But still, if anything from these conversations resonated, and if you know anyone in your life who may benefit from these questions, who could not be part of our space today, please do share the information. You will all receive an email with a link to the program details, and it's an invitation. So, and it will keep happening once in a while. So please do consider sharing it with anyone who you feel might benefit from it, because part of our joy in working with these practices is also sharing it with others who are holding similar questions, because the learning just grows when we hold that question together and share with each other. Thank you, Lakshmi. Thanks for sharing in the chat.
Prasanna, thanks for that message. I don't think we want to ban anything, saying again, we are putting a should not should. Let it come and let's explore. That's what our funda. But yeah, I understand where you're coming from.
It's easier. Well, it's harder not to use certain words, but
yeah, it's directing. It has to come and then let it evolve. So it's okay.
I understand.
See, after all, we are also living in this world, no, which has been conditioned in a way to think certain, use certain words, and this is how it is. So I need to experience it. I need to acknowledge. I can't say this is you're wrong. I need to embrace that. That's the dharma you're saying. No, I need to embrace what am I bhumi, and then also start to inquire. But this is not enlivening me. Neither it's enlivening the context. Then you stay with the question.
Okay, so we had set the time for this call for 90 minutes. So this call may end anytime. So rather than leaving it abruptly, I think let's just close it consciously and mindfully. So thank you all for being here, sharing this space. And if you're interested in just being part of these kind of conversations, RK here, part of our Ritambhara Sangha, RK anchors a fortnightly Levo call. What we did today is a Levo, listening in, voicing out. We call that Levo. So we explore whatever comes up relevant. And if you are interested in what we discussed, want to stay with these questions with the help of a Sangha deeper, just share an email, send out an email to us at saptasara@ritambhara.org.in, and maybe we'll see some of you at the ashram. So thank you all. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Hari.